Hi, Dr. Chef B here, and welcome back to Cost Cards Part 2. In Cost Cards 1, we covered the basis and the top portion of the cost card. Now we'll cover the bottom portion. It all comes down to how much should we charge? And that could depend on a couple of different factors. First, what's our preliminary or starting selling price? And this is based on our food cost percentage. And then we look at market forces, supply and demand. What are the customers willing to pay for this item? How about benchmarks like direct and indirect competitions? And of course, demographics and what kind of food service operation is it is all going to play into the big dollar amount of how much we price it. So, just for a cost card recap, let's look at what we need for our cost card. Well, first we need our standardized recipe card. And we look into our standardized recipe file or the different cost cards that I've given you. For this particular cost card, we're going to be costing out the Cajun chicken pasta. And I'm just doing a few of the items just so you get the idea, and then I want you to try it on your own. Okay, so when looking at your cost card, you'll notice that the ingredients of the recipe are in there, as well as your invoice and ingredient amounts. Just a quick recap, when creating that as purchase cost, the amount is for green peppers. Let's do green peppers. It's the amount after we have removed any waste, like skin, seeds, or if it was bones. So green pepper would be 1 divided by 80 equals 1.25. So the recipe invoice, or the vendor invoice unit cost, tells us that for every $8.30 we get 5 pounds of green peppers. So $8.30 divided by 5 gives us $1.66 per pound. So we multiply this as purchased by the invoice unit cost to get the individual ingredient cost. So these are all going to change because of the pack size, so you'll need to do some converting like we did on the worksheets in class. Okay, so moving down to the cost card to the total ingredient cost. We add up all the individual ingredient costs to get $16.93. But that doesn't give us the total recipe cost yet. We still need to add in a Q factor. So basically the total ingredient cost is $16.93. When we add in the Q factor, it's the total ingredient cost times the Q factor percentage. So $16.93 times 0.03, which is a 3% Q factor, gives us $17.43. Okay, so the Q factor is basically the unquantifiable amount of ingredients we put into a recipe. And this is typically a stationary price set by our management. It's found by adding up all the ingredients like salt and pepper, pan spray, in a weekly inventory, and then dividing by the amount of customers you have per week. So when we take that recipe cost, in order to find the recipe cost, we take the total individual ingredient cost plus the Q factor. So $16.93 plus 51 gives us $17.43. Now the next one is the portion cost. The portion cost is the recipe cost divided by the recipe yield amount. So $17.43 divided by 4 gives us $4.36. But that gives us the portion cost for one portion of all of that recipe. So that recipe makes 4. So it's a fourth of this recipe is how much it's making. But we have to look at what else is underneath the cover. So what else is on that plate? We're going to have Cajun chicken pasta. We're also going to have an American salad, and we're going to throw a dinner roll on there as well. So we have to add that into our total food cost. So to do that, the next step would be to add up all those ingredients to get our food cost. So 97 cents for a salad, 5 cents for our roll, and that gives us $5.38. So our total plate cost, which is another term for food cost, is the portion cost plus any additional items that are put on that plate or that are included in that menu item. So $4.36 plus 97 cents plus 5 cents gives us $5.38. After we have that total plate cost, we're going to divide that by our 30%, to get to our $17.93. That's the preliminary selling price. That's the least amount we can charge for this one menu item. So the preliminary selling price is the total plate cost, which is the food cost, divided by the desired cost percentage. So $5.38 divided by our 30% gives us $17.93. That's the minimum amount we can charge for this. We've decided we're going to charge $25. So we need to find out what our actual cost percentage, how much of a contribution margin are we going to make from this. So our actual cost percentage is just taking our food cost, which is our total plate cost, and we divide that by our actual selling price. So we take our $5.38, divide it by $25, and that gives us a 21.5% food cost. So there you have it. Now it's your turn to try the chicken cajun pasta for yourself.